the meeting tonight and at Bill's infrared presentation. I've been looking forward to this since he announced it in the spring. I'm going to make him a little embarrassed. Bill is my inspiration for starting infrared photography, and I admire his work, and I would be remiss if I did not mention Ivan Bubb, who really first started me on it with black and white in terms of at one of the old Kutztown meetings. We were having lunch and he said, "Have you ever shot infrared?" And I said, "What's that?" And we started there, and Bill is the one who really got me into converting my camera. So he'll go all through that. But just again, officers, I know this is preaching to the pews. You've all heard it. We are looking for people to fill positions for next year. They've been posted on the newsletters. You can see it. You don't need any experience. You just need to want to help the club. And a lot of the people who've been here for years have done that. Gary, I want to recognize some new people. Bill in the back, thank you. David, who's new, thank you, welcome. And a big welcome back to Gary Marzalak. And it took me 5 minutes to remember his name, but I got it. So welcome back and welcome to the new members. Bill V. Is that William? Bill V. I'd like to meet him because I'd love to see him do a presentation on wet plate. So you're already hooked. Jay will sign you up at some point for next year.
He signed up for March.
All right. Thank you, Jay. And thank you, Bill or Will. All right, that's real quick. I just want to say that about, please, if you would like to, you don't need any experience to help us in the leadership roles. I'm an example of not having any experience to be in a leadership role. I keep trying to convince Vince, but he keeps trying to move. So, and he's not moving real quickly now, so maybe we can corral him. But anyway, trying to think, is anything else? Yes, the reception. Thank you. Do you have anything you would like to add, Becky, about that?
Okay, so our photography show is beautiful. It's at Montco. It is at the Pottstown campus in the North Hall. There's an art gallery on East High. I think 116 East High is the actual address. But our reception is this Friday, 5 to 8. Alan and another Ken are going to be performing. Should be beautiful. And there'll be lots of food, water. But there'll be lots of food. And come see the show. Let people know. I've been posting reels starting yesterday. I'll do every day with pieces from the show. So by Friday, everybody's pieces will be represented, but 90 some pieces. It's really nice. So hope everybody will come. And the show is up until October 24th. So if you can't come on Friday, do go see it. I'd love for the club to do more shows. So that it was really nice that Patrick, the curator of the Montco galleries, invited our group to do a show. And they have not done a photo show in a long time, and they're very excited. They were very excited about it. And so I think we were great. Yeah. So anyway.
Thank you, Becky, for all the work. Yeah, also, Sylvia, I'll do 2 words for you. There you are. Okay, right in the front row. Why didn't I look? Sylvia has been organizing the summer shoot. Yes, the summer challenge, which I have still not gotten the pictures to you on, but everybody, is there a deadline for that, Sylvia? Okay. Well, we don't need to agree, but just everybody in Zoom land as well, if you have any pictures from your summer vacations or summer experiences, send them in. And it's, again, it's not a judging show, it's just to show off your work. And yes, thank you. All links and newsletter. And with that, check your newsletters when they come out every other Friday. All the information you need about anything going on in the club will be there. Ginny does an excellent job of communicating with us. And if you do not get it, let us know. And who besides myself can't get into the website? Yeah, that's getting to be a problem. Our website, I can't even sign on. It won't do anything, so I don't know. Karen has been working on that. She'll be here later. So, okay, any comments? Anybody else like to say something?
Yep, just want to remind everybody about the October competition coming up. We've got that deadline for submitting your image 10/12, and it is celestial bodies. Look in your newsletter. All the details are in there. And then the competition is on October 27th. So submit some stuff. So.
So do I. Okay. All right. Unless there's anybody else who would like to say something, I think at this point, we're going to put Jay on center stage to introduce our presenter this evening. Thank you. Okay.
All right, everybody. I just want to welcome you here tonight and give a big thank you to Bill Coughlin for agreeing to do this presentation on infrared photography, which is one of my favorite genres of photography. So I'm going to let Bill take it over and go ahead. So go ahead, Bill.
Okay, Jay, thanks.
Now you want the presentation up?
Yep.
Screen. So we're getting this.
Well, first of all, Ken, thank you for the nice words. Glad I inspired you to spend money. You know, I've been into photography for over 60 years, which means I'm an old codger. My interest in infrared photography, though, began many, many years ago in southern Wisconsin. My uncle owned a farm, and in Walworth County, they were having issues with the crops, and so the farmers got together and hired a plane to take infrared photos of the crops, and based on those images, you stealing my mouse. Based on those images, they could tell what crops needed more water, or certain fertilizers or whatever. When I saw those pictures, I couldn't relate to the fact that I was seeing something that I couldn't see with my own eyes. And so that kind of got me interested in learning about the electromagnetic spectrum. And I really didn't get into infrared photography for probably 10, 15 years ago. And it's one of those genres that I dabble in every once in a while. Like, somebody will do macro, Ginny will do macro. So I'll try macro and I'm horrible at it. Or astrophotography and I'm horrible at it. At least with infrared, I'm not great, but I'm not horrible. So this presentation, I actually gave one 4 years ago. So it's a refresh and an update of it. And I have a lot of information to go through. And Vince has a hook on his cane, and when you want to hook me out, just get me out. Yeah, my main goal here is to for you to get a better understanding of infrared photography, where it fits in the light spectrum, and specifically how I approach my workflow with it, and to show you my different filters that I use. A lot of the images that I'm going to be sharing. Hey, where's my mouse? I guess I'll use the. So, give you a little overview of the light spectrum. I think it's important to see where the visual part, what we see, fits in the overall spectrum, and it's just a tiny uses of infrared. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. It's really, and Vince probably knows this, being used more and more in the medical field for diagnostics as well as for healing. Going to show you the options for infrared photography. You don't have to go whole hog into it. However, there's certain cautions that you must be aware of, specifically like light loss. If I have a non-converted camera, the issues you're faced with there, lens issues, white balance. I'm going to go over my gear, but that's a moot point because it really almost doesn't matter what you use. And my infrared process, which is continually changing. And then I'm going to go over the filters that I have with specific examples of the results of those. 470 hypercolor, 590 super color. I just bought an IR chrome filter this year, enhanced IR standard, and the deep black and white. So before I get into it, the details, I'm just going to go through maybe a half a dozen of my my images. A couple are from the other presentation, just to show you. You're going to see that my style with infrared, you can be, blowing out colors and, just some really weird stuff. I'm a conservative. I tend to like toned down images. So the first one here, oh yeah, I want to mention. The Heritage Center is 10 minutes from my house. It's a beautiful place to take photos. I probably, over the 30 years we've lived here, have several thousand, probably hundreds and hundreds of them are infrared. I'm going to be showing the Gruber Wagon Works probably 6 or 7 images, mainly so you can see the differences between the different filters and the process that I use to get the end result. A lot of times I'll take IR images and really don't know what I'm looking for until I get it into Photoshop or Capture One or whatever tool. Again, a side note here, it really doesn't matter. Lightroom, On One, I use Photoshop and Capture One. So the first one there is the Gruber Wagon Works with what some people consider a typical view with a white vegetation. That was taken with a 590 filter, which you'll be learning more about. The same image with just a little bit of tweaking looks like that. Quite a bit, same image. And to go from that to that just took a few seconds. Once you have the right process down. The next one is actually one of my personal favorite. That's taken with a 665. That's also at the Heritage Center. That is one of I think it's the old mill. That building is actually red. Jenny knows, he's been down there. Basically the same picture, or not the same picture, same location. That's Epler School, taken with a 850 filter, which is one of the easiest to use in post-processing. Basically just set a white point and boom, you're done. Then we get into more of the colors that aren't my favorite, but I do enjoy doing them, and that's the hyper color. That is the Stolfus farmstead down Union Canal. And I'm showing you this one because it's going to be a point that I'll bring up in a little while. That's actually shot down my street with a 470 hypercolor filter. But notice right in the middle, between the garage and the house, there's the bright spot. That's, whoop, sorry, thank you. That's one of the cautions or things to be aware of is lens hotspots. Certain lenses have hotspots, which some you can overcome. I mean, you know, software these days with like a healing brush, content aware, you can't get rid of them. And then this is another one of the Gruber Wagenworth. This is with my new filter, the IR Chrome. And it's limited. However, I really like it because you get the blue skies and the red vegetation, red trees, which again, I've kind of toned that down here. Excuse me. This is not one of mine. However, if you know anything about the James Webb Space Telescope, a lot of their images are taken with infrared cameras. That was called the near infrared as well as the mid infrared. This just blows my mind to think the images that we're getting out of that space telescope. Okay, the light spectrum really ranges all the way from the gamma rays off on the left all the way to the AM radio, different wavelengths. And I may once in a while stumble, instead of say wavelength, I might say frequency. They're two entirely different things. We're talking wavelengths here. And the visible spectrum is that tiny slice right in the middle. And it 1/1000th of 1% of the spectrum is the visible light. And what we're going to be talking about then is images that span some of the visible light into the near infrared. The infrared spectrum can actually be broken down into the near infrared, the mid infrared, and the far infrared. And based on the wavelength, can be used in various devices. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this mainly because I don't know a whole lot about it. The near infrared, medical imaging, light therapy, environmental monitoring. I kind of already alluded to that with, you know, my uncle on his farm using infrared images to diagnose issues with the crop and security. And the mid-infrared are again, some medical benefits, astronomy. I mentioned the James Webb Space Telescope, surgical lasers. I'm sure Vince is well aware of some of those tools as well. And then the far infrared, therapeutic devices. It penetrates deep into the skin. Saunas, heating pads, mattresses, you know, according to this, which I don't know, healing by boosting cell growth and blood flow. A lot of times you see an image like this. This is actually a thermal image, not an infrared. Thermal is based on heat that's emitted from the subject, whereas infrared is based on reflected infrared light and requires an external light source. You're going to see later on when I recommend that the golden hour for infrared is really high noon, when the beating sun is coming down and the infrared is being reflected off of all the objects. Okay, excuse me. You can experiment with infrared by taking your current camera and putting a filter on it. The issue becomes It's very difficult to focus. It's going to be just like you're using a neutral density filter. So you're going to have to probably use a tripod, manually focus, calculate your exposure, put filter on, take the exposure, see if it's right, do it all over again. And of course, if you have moving objects, forget it. You know, it's like I say, it's the same with neutral density filter. That's very frustrating. I've done it. You know, that's kind of how I started. Oh, I'll get a 720 filter and do it. And then, you know, it was like just not fun. Camera conversion. Human eye can see wavelength from 400 to 700 nanometers. Most sensors are sensors are sensitive to 300 to 1200. So what your camera has in it is what's called a UV IR cut filter. It blocks things down on the UV side, ultraviolet side, and then infrared on the upper side. And so you can get a camera converted. You can send it in, and probably for less than $300 have your camera converted. And that's what I did with one of mine. Then what can happen though, here we go. It's much more sensitive than to your infrared. You're able to hand hold it. It's just like using your regular camera. You're able to autofocus, no tripod required, and it's rather expensive. You have a camera then that's dedicated to IR photography, and that's kind of with a little asterisk, because you can actually buy a UV IR cut filter and attach it to your lens. So it's just like you have your regular camera back. I have no experience with that. Supposedly it works fine. So you could have your IR camera also function as a normal camera. When you have it converted, you can tell them what wavelength you would like it converted to. You know, I had the 470, 590, 665, 720, 850, or you can also have one called full spectrum that lets in the entire light spectrum from ultraviolet to infrared. It's the most flexible, but that means then you need filters. Yes. No, they're just taking that cut, the UV IV cut filter out of it. You still have the sensor, same sensor. Thank you. The question was, do they have to change the sensor in the camera when they convert it? And the answer is no. Thanks, Bob. So I had one of the Fuji cameras first converted to 590, which meant I could go out, take photos with the 590 sensor. I didn't have to put any filters on my lenses. But then when I wanted to use, for example, 720, I just go out, put it on, very little light loss. When I wanted to use an 850, put that on. But that meant I then couldn't use anything lower than that. For example, a 470 hypercolor. You can only use it from what I'll have a couple slides on the cutoff. And then brilliant, one day I decided, well, I really want to use try hypercolor. So I didn't have a choice. I had my other camera converted to full spectrum, which again, if I had to do it all over, hindsight, I'd probably do a full spectrum and then decide which filters I wanted to use. Any other questions right now? Is somebody monitoring chat or not? Okay. You can also purchase a converted camera. I have experience with Life Pixel and Polari Vision. They're both excellent companies. And if you're going to buy a fairly modern current camera, you're spending still a lot of money compared to some of the older versions. Who's the gentleman that we went on the New York trip with? Yeah, Dutch bought a small point and shoot for his infrared, and those are quite excellent. I mentioned light loss. On a regular camera, the 720 filter, you might lose up to 10 stops of light. Long exposure, definitely going to need a tripod. And the 850 is even worse. I mean, that's, if you looked at the filter, it's almost totally black. Again, manual focus, you have to get your exposure just like using a neutral density filter. Yeah.
So is that different if you had a full spectrum camera and then put an 850 filter?
Funny you should ask. No. Yeah, the full spectrum, you don't have that cut, the UV IR cut filter in there. And it's just like, you know, it might affect me by one or a couple of stops, but definitely not 15 stops. Even with the 590, I've noticed a slight gain in exposure. 720 is like shooting regular camera, and the 850, I might lose 1 to 3 stops is all, which isn't a big deal at all, nothing at all. This is a image just to break up the monotony of all the text slides. This is another one of my favorites, though. That is again down at the Heritage Center. That's Epler School. It's another one of my favorites because I like the subdued colors. That one was probably with a 665 filter. Okay, couple of things you should be aware of. Lenses can produce hot spots. I showed you an example of one, and I have a couple more examples coming up. And really, you know, there's a database, you have a reference to it. You can say, reference this database of lenses that are excellent. Well, what the heck? Go out with your own, check it, because the hotspot may or may not appear depending on the f-stop you're using and the focal length. So, you know, it's one of these, okay, it tends to be a hotspot, but I can overcome it. This was with my 10 to 24, and I really like that lens. But if you noticed up in the top, the hotspot, bottom one, hotspot, I could pretty much change the f-stop and get a pretty good image. And then, like I say, with Photoshop these days, with content aware delete, you never know that the image had a hotspot. This one was just down the street. I showed you that image at the beginning in color. And if you weren't looking for it, like if I have a tree line, sometimes you can't even see that there's a hot spot. I have one favorite lens of mine that I use. It's a 16 to 80, and it's pretty clean no matter what f-stop I use, which, you know, I try to get a better depth of field, so I'm shooting at f8, f11 anyway.
Bill, slide before this, the hot spot was like the iris of your lens. Is it lens flare?
Yeah,
Because it's multi-sided.
probably. Oh, the question, thank you. The question was whether the hotspot was related to the diaphragm of the lens and not just a circular, with all the. Hello. Again, Kalari and Life Pixel, as well as there's another site that has done extensive testing of various lenses. And nowadays you just, you know, Google lens hotspot infrared, and you'll probably have 100 different references. And, you know, Canon hotspots, you'll get a pretty good idea. But for me, it's not a gigantic issue. Oh, I'm not going to use this lens because I get this hotspot. Again, depending on where it is in your image, it's going to be right in the middle. This is an issue I should at least bring up because it's not an issue for me. And that's focusing. The camera focuses slightly behind the visible light focal plane. And a lot of mine, I don't pixel peep. The images are mostly for myself, share. I try to go for higher depth of field anyway, and look for focus on something that's within the depth of field. Again, just test your lenses. Use manual focus if necessary. A lot of the modern cameras have what's called focus peaking or split image. You do that. If you have a converted camera, it's not going to be a big issue to do manual focusing. And just to follow up, another comment about it, just test them. Go out and test them. It always can give you an excuse to get a new lens, right? Okay, this is I shoot RAW. RAW gives me such more range to play with, and play is in quotes because you can go down the rabbit hole. That's how much time you waste. Oh, I shouldn't say waste, experiment with. Certainly you can shoot JPEG and get good images. If you're shooting JPEG, you really should set a good white point, so you aren't really struggling in post-processing to get the white balance right. I shoot RAW. And again, there are a lot of tutorials. I'm going to give you a reference to somebody. Matter of fact, I have his book up here, Rob Shea, who is really a leading authority on infrared photography. Shooting RAW, I can have multiple versions of the same image, as you saw when I first started, showing the two different pictures of the Gruber wagon works. Sometimes I could spend an hour on one image getting a dozen different versions of it and then end up throwing 10 of them in the bit bucket anyway. So this really doesn't mean a whole lot. I shoot Fuji. I've shot Fuji for many, many years. I have an old Fuji X E1 that I have converted to a full spectrum, which means I can use any filter. Or I have an XT1 that was converted to 590. 590 is probably my favorite. It's also the one that takes place most of my time. I have the following filters: the 470, IR Chrome, 665, 720, 850. All five can be used on the full spectrum, but only the 665, 720, and 850 can be used on the XT1. Any questions there?
Still.
Yeah.
Still good filter everything out except that.
That wavelength up. That wavelength down, it filters out. I'm sorry, wavelength down. This is just another filler image over at the Stonehouse Pond. The 665, 720, and 850 produce, I think you can convert to awesome black and white images.
So Bill, back on that last image,
This one?
can you alter and post the images that you showed the trees to be pink? Can you then just make them this, or do you need that filter?
The question is, do I need the filter to convert some of the other images like that showed the pink? It's just like a regular image, Vince. I could use Photoshop channel mixer, whatever you want, Lightroom, Photoshop.
So you can make big difference.
That's the advantage of doing RAW. Most definitely.
That's what I was asking. The green tree. Yeah, I understand that, but in the earlier image, the green trees were pink. And you told me you could then make the pink into white.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. And I'll talk a little bit about some of that coming up.
Start out with a specific range in the filter to get this?
The question is, if I have to start off at a different range in the wavelength, the specific filter, to get the image I'm showing. The higher, for example, the 720, 665, 720 actually produce better black and white results than the 590 and some of the others. There's more, you can have more contrast. Now, don't get me wrong, because there's plenty of actions available that you can apply in Lightroom and Photoshop. Matter of fact, you know, in Photoshop, you can simulate infrared without having an infrared camera. It's just not as much fun and costs a lot less. My IR process, I really have kind of a mishmash, I'll call it. I use Capture One for all my raw processing. The problem with Capture One is there's a process called channel swap that is extremely difficult in Capture One. A channel swap, and it's the next slide, where you can, you know, the red channel, I make it blue, the blue channel, I can make it red. I'll have some examples here. The problem then is, so I'll process some styles, a certain look I want in Capture One, then pass it off to Camera Raw, Photoshop. It's a little more time consuming. So I'm learning more about Photoshop, how to get the same result I'm getting out of Capture One. Now, again, you could use, if you shoot raw, any of your raw processing programs, the only thing you have to watch for is if it can do this channel swap or not. And I think On1 does, and I'm not sure about some of the others. The last comment there, Photoshop, to do channel swap, color adjustment. I'll use Channel Mixer, NIK, Color Effects Pro, and other programs can do the channel swap. This basically is what a channel swap is. And for me, almost with the 590, almost every image I do, I'll have to do a channel swap. And I'm going to show you some pretty ugly images that come out of the camera. And you think, what the heck? What did I do wrong? And then as soon as you do the channel swap, it's like, wow. Yeah. Yes. Yep. Question was I talking about RGB channels? Yes. Again, I don't know about Lightroom, how easy or difficult it is. So in Photoshop, basically, if you look on the left, I'm talking about the red channel. I set it to 0. I set the blue up to 100. Or again, you can play with the percentage. And then on the blue channel, I'm making the red 100%. And then the blue channel 0. It'll become less muddy coming up here. So this image, this is the 590 after I've processed raw, set the white balance. It's with the converted 590 camera, so I didn't need any external. And you know, okay, do I want a blue picture of trees? I didn't. So I did the channel swap, and that's what came out. Now, actions available, both Light Pixel, Kalari, Rob Shea. There are hundreds and hundreds of different actions you can get, most of them free, to try different tweaking. And again, what will happen, I'll get down and try everything. And before you know it, an hour's gone and I have an image that I didn't like. I took this the other day out at Blue Marsh. This was a 665 filter. That's before the channel swap. And there it is after the channel swap. And no other, I didn't have to really tweak much with the channel mixer or the color mixer because the action took care of it for me.
Bill, for those who don't know, explain Photoshop action.
Vince asked the question about what do I mean by a Photoshop action? An action is basically a recorded set of steps. For example, if I, went in a channel mixer, turned it to red and blue. I went up and did some sharpening and, you know, just recorded a whole bunch of steps and turned that into an action. And basically then with one click, it would perform all of those steps. And there's only basically 3 or 4 that I use. I probably have 50 different ones, but so an action is just basically a recorded set of instructions to your software program. Yeah, or macros. So don't panic. First time I imported my stuff into Capture One, and I'm seeing this. What the heck is this stuff? Depending on your software program, you may or may not have presets that it applies on import. I don't know if Lightroom does it. I have an option with Capture One, but a lot of your images are going to look like this. If you do a better job of doing white balance, it won't look quite so out of whack. So this image is actually off my deck. When I in the mood to do some experimenting with infrared, I just go off my deck, shoot some images. I'll go down the street, shoot some images. And once I feel confident enough in what I want to accomplish, I'll drive over to Heritage Center. You know, there are some of the other places. So that's on import with one click. That's what I got. I like the image. Now, you really can't tell much, but that's actually in winter. You don't have to hang up infrared once winter sets. And I'll show you a couple of photos there. And I already mentioned it, depending on the program, you may or may not have presets applied. First thing I would probably do on an import or import one image would just set the white balance. If I haven't done a custom white balance in my camera, for me, a lot of times it's just clicking on a white cloud. Pretty much takes care of it. Sometimes I will set a custom white balance just again to experiment. But for me, it's just choosing something that will give me a good white. There's a better slide than this coming up. Remember, the filter cuts out the wavelength below it. So for example, 470 hypercolor will cut out all the violet, some of the blue. 590, if you look at, you know, where the 590 is, violet, blue, green, and most of yellow, etc. The deep black and white basically cuts everything out. I have a better slide coming up. And then the IR chrome filter that I just purchased a couple months ago is a specialty filter. Way back, the Kodachrome aerochrome filter or film was the infrared filter that professionals would use. This chrome filter must be used with the full spectrum camera. And notice what it passes. It passes the blue, green, and blocks out red and orange. And so the foliage appears red and skies remain blue, which is kind of cool. So basically, it's a busy screen. However, I think it does, you can see visually what the filter is cutting out. In the IR chrome, I don't know how they managed to do it, but it created a filter that, cuts out that certain yellows through reds and leaves the blues and greens. Any questions so far? All the visual. Just counting on. The question was, does the 850, what do I mean by cuts out everything? Cuts out all the visual. All the... Okay, so now we're going to take a close look at the filters I use. So the 470 hypercolor, that one I got from Life Pixel. I don't think anybody else produces that one. Again, that one must be used with my full spectrum, because if you remember, my converted XT1 is a 590. There's no channel swapping usually. Natural looking skin tones, I don't take people pictures with infrared. It's just not my forte. Post processing, significant color adjustments. I can play around with the hue, saturation, channel mixer. I really don't use many actions on this one. It's just like, call up the channel mixer and, play around. That's a shot down my block. To me, that's pretty wild colors. Pretty much. It's raw into, in this case, I just straight into Photoshop, and really didn't mess with it much at all. I might set the white balance is all, but really didn't have to channel swap. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I would, I should, if I had to show you all the junk that I've created, it would be here a week. Of course, Grings Mill. This one isn't too wild. Kind of nice. This is at the visitor center up at Blue Marsh. And then probably because me messing with channel mixer. And quite honestly, I am with the 470 and 720. They aren't my favorite. And I really don't, when I see a different color, it doesn't bother me because it's infrared. It could be different leaves, different, yeah, it's reflecting to. Vince asked the question about why the trees are different green here. Again, it could be because not all the leaves are reflecting the same infrared wavelength.
Another question here is, do you ever stack the filters?
Do you ever stack the filters? No. Because, for example, if I put a 720 on my 590, it's going to block out 720 and below anyway. The question was whether I stack the filters. No, you can't. Well, you can, but it's not going to work. And this is down at Grings Mill, the bridge across. Again, you can see it's probably late fall, maybe winter. It looks like some snow there. Again, different color leaves. 590. Super vibrant, good base to convert to black and white, most flexibility for post-processing. And this is the warning. The most flexibility means you can spend a lot of time. I actually enjoy the post-processing. I really do. I like trying to get different looks to my images. Here's Grings Mill again. Quick channel swap. So, and what I'd probably do with this one is it's a little too orange for me, so I'd probably tone that down. Winter. Again, don't just think of infrared photography as a summer bright sun type thing. I actually enjoy getting out in winter. This is down at the pond at the Stone House in Wyomissing. I like that image. Now you're seeing some strange stuff up in the sky, but it doesn't bother me any. This is over at Blue Marsh. Just quick conversion to black and white. And this is one of my favorite images down at what's it? Is that Angora Fruit Farm, which I think now is a Berks County park. Like walking around there in the wintertime. I just like the colors. Who's been to the Grounds for Sculpture? It's an awesome place. Boy, suggest you get there. It's only maybe hour and a half, 2 hour drive. They have these gigantic sculptures. But this shot I just took, they have several of these little niches where, you know, different things going on. That one, I really didn't have to work too much on that, toned it down a little. As opposed to, here's another one of the, remember I warned you about the Gruber Wagon Works? There you go, nice bright red. At least it looks red up here. Look red out there.
Yeah.
There's another one of the mill
What is this one? What filter is this?
590. These are all the 590s I'm showing you. And this one, just set the white point. There's one of the actions I have that said, you know, do your channel swap and convert to white. And if you've done the white balance right, it will do a lot of the trees white. So a lot of it, you know, I don't want to give the impression that it's, you know, hours and hours of work, because you can go out, have some fun, take it back, pull them in, set the white balance, run an action, and get pretty close to what you know, what you have in your mind. And this was just the tree down in the, what's the Wyoming, back of the Highlands, the park down, or the walk down there. So if you think of the 665 filter, okay, so now we're talking about a filter that blocks out more of the visible light than the 590. You can get some pretty good false colors. It's more vibrant than the 720, which is coming up, but less than the 590. Light yellow, foliage and blue skies, surreal and artistic effect in landscapes. I don't do too much experimentation getting a surreal looking image. As I mentioned several times, I like more of a, you know, reality looking as much as possible with subdued colors. And that's over at Antietam, the reservoir at Antietam. If you haven't been over there, that's a wonderful place to walk around too. The only thing missing in this one is those nice white fluffy clouds. I'll tell you right now, when I see white fluffy clouds, I'm grabbing the infrared camera. This is down at Penn State Berks. If you've never walked around Penn State Berks, do it. It's nice, nice little campus, really beautiful. And of course, have to include more down at the Heritage Center. Now you have to realize I'm 10 minutes from the Heritage Center. You can drive in, if there's no traffic in back here, roll down the window, wide angle lens, click, click, click. You don't have to get out of the car. But a lot of times they will, because that's the red covered bridge down there, Epler Schoolhouse. There's actually a little cemetery back along the trail if you've never been down there. This is, again, I've shown you a similar one to that, one of my favorites. The subdued colors, the dramatic sky, the windmill. The one coming up. Pardon me? Thank you. The next one is, again, very similar. Yeah.
I had asked, have you converted this beautiful to this black and white?
Oh, Vince asked if I've converted it to black. That one? No,
No. That
one.
I love that.
Yeah, thanks. No, I haven't. Vince asked if I've converted this to black and white. No, I haven't. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the Heritage Center is right near St. Joe's Hospital. If you haven't been down there, just take the time. You can walk You see the covered bridge. You can all walk 2 miles maybe down to the Rings Mill Recreation Area. It's a wonderful place. We've lived here 30 years, and I'm not kidding. I probably have thousands of pictures of it. I'll go, summer, winter, fall, doesn't matter. If I need to get out of the house or Susie wants me out of the house, I'll just grab a camera and go down to the Heritage Center. She knows where I'm headed to. Pardon me? Coughlin. And likewise, this is one of my favorite. Again, the subdued colors. And the other day I was over at the Stilling Basin off of Palisades. Just, I like the image. That's the other thing is you really have to take into account you're still should worry about composition. And a lot of times I'll go out and I forget that I really should worry about composition, take a nice image, and that's why one of my tips coming up is when you're shooting with the infrared and you're shooting what you see, I convert, because I'm shooting raw, I can set the camera to say, okay, shoot black and white, and then I see it in black and white, and composing is much easier. This is the one I mentioned, the 720. I don't know what it is, and maybe I don't use it enough. I'm just not really good at it. It just doesn't seem to have as much flexibility, which it doesn't, as the 590 and 665. That is over at the Anilani on 73, the spillway. Now, here we go. This is why I say I've taken similar images with different filters so you can compare them. So here is basically that same shot with 720 and messed around. When I say messed around, experimented with no action in the channel mixer in Photoshop. And there it was with a 665 and 720. So, it's like, okay, maybe on Monday I like this shot, but Tuesday I like this shot. And I like this shot except for the windmill is crooked. Must have been high wind that day because I got everything else straight. I happen to be a stickler for verticals and horizontals being straight as much as possible. But again, that was with the 720. And again, maybe I'm not that great with it because I don't use it all that much, because my instinct is just to grab the camera that has the 590, it's converted, and go out and shoot. Now that I have the IR chrome filter, it's a niche type filter, which we're going to be looking at in a minute. So sometimes I grab both cameras in my pouch of filters and, see what mood I'm in. I actually did go down to Grings Mill and try to get a set of same exact images with each filter, but I failed miserably. They looked horrible. And I didn't feel like spending hours at it. Okay. The 830, I put 830, 850, depending, like Koari has the 850, and I think like Pixel has an 830. They're so similar. Some companies have 900 and some, and I really can't relate to how you'd want more or less. How does that make sense? More or less. Little processing required. Basically, you suck it in and set the white balance. My 850 loves fluffy white clouds, and when I see those, man, I'm thinking, man, I got to get out. That's the shot down my street, pull it in, set a white point. Now not danger, just a caution to myself is a lot of times I'll blow out the whites because I didn't get the white balance right. I have to go back and adjust it. But, to me, those images with the white fluffy clouds, This is another one of the Gruber. Same spot I took those other photos from, but on this day, there were these beautiful white fluffy clouds, which my 850 loves. And I think I shared this one before that was down at the Stone House. Then talk a little bit about the IR chrome. I like this one in that the sky is blue, but there's less flexibility to play with some of the other colors. This is over at Anilani. That's pretty much straight out of the camera, well, raw, you know, set the white point in Photoshop and that's it. Personally, I would, if I was going to print this, I would tone it down. I'd cut back on the saturation. And that's the, again, the, what do you call it? Spilling, not the spill, the spillway, thank you. And you ready for one more, Gruber Wagon Works? Actually, I really like this one. This one, the subdued colors, the cloud. I even cropped it okay. There might be some haloing on top of the trees. I really can't tell. Some of these images I didn't really upload the full resolution of them. I typically, you know, because they're my own use, might do 1280 or 1920 on the long side. Bright yellow. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. The question was, the Gruber Wagon Works is a bright yellow building, and the answer is yes, although it's toned down, you know, here, because I didn't want to do any masking and, you know, really a lot of work on it. I just brought it in, didn't like how red it was, cut back on that, and, you know, I really like the image. This one is back at the Stilling Basin. I should have had the other one next to it so you could see the differences. And then this one, if you've been on near the prison on what's the name of that road? Yeah. You've been in the prison or close to it? Oh, County Welfare Road. Yeah, County Welfare Road near Berksheim. That one, you know, there's really no good place to get out of the car. So, you know, drive real slowly across the bridge and hope nobody's in the back of you, stick the camera out the window and shoot. You know, I like it. I probably won't use the IR chrome filter as much as, you know, in the winter, maybe when there's fewer leaves on the trees and see how the pines come out. I'll probably do that. We're getting near the end and it's not even 10 o'clock. I try to keep it less than 90 slides like Ken had. Okay, my observations, comments. Yes, it's nice having two cameras. It really is. You know, again, hindsight, you know, I've spent quite a bit on filters. I've spent quite a bit on conversion on the camera. It's an awesome hobby, photography. This is just one piece of it. I do a lot of, as most of you know, event photography. I don't get out on my own very often, but I do with the IR camera. If you think you would use hypercolor or IR chrome, otherwise, I was quite happy with just the 590 conversion. So then I didn't need to buy any extra filters. Honestly, there are actions that will make the 590 colors look very similar to out of 665 and 720. So I probably wouldn't have had to buy those two. If I had to do it over, I'd probably get a full, you know, full conversion, what's called. Yeah, thank you. Full spectrum. Maybe the IR chrome, a 590 and an 850. I really do like the 850 because the 850 likes what, Barbara? Fluffy white clouds. as I already mentioned, I set the camera to display black and white. It really helps with composition. Can see better. Filters require the least processing, the 850 and the IR chrome. Pretty much straight out of the camera. You might have to, adjust the white balance a little bit and the contrast to taste, just like any other image you're processing. The one that requires the most is 590. Most flexibility and options to experiment. I put play in quotes because I really don't mind playing. Warning, you can spend a lot of time trying the different looks. And you could spend a couple hours with one image, getting different looks to it. And it's just be aware. Sometimes I'll get this look that I like. Now, if you remember, I'm converting my workflow. Capture One can create a certain output image that I'll bring in the Photoshop to swap the channels. So sometimes I'm going back and forth. And once in a while, I find this look of, oh, wow, I really like that. And I'll keep a log. So, I might say, yeah, I processed in Capture One with this style, with this white balance, and then brought it into Photoshop and ran this action. Just a log, because I'll come back and I'll say, okay, how did I do that image at the Heritage Center with the subdued colors? And then I just like, oh man, then I'm wasting time trying to replicate that look. As I mentioned, the golden hour for IR photography, noon to early afternoon. I've mentioned action several times, but there's other like LUTs, lookup tables, color lookup tables. At least in Photoshop, you can have built-in color grading, so to speak. Again, click, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll try a different color LUT, and then try a different action, and waste another 10 or 15 minutes. And if you have, and again, Vince, I'm not the Lightroom guy, but in Photoshop, you can, Google infrared Photoshop actions, and you'll probably end up, a lot of them you can try for free. And there are some of them that get pretty darn close. And then you'll look, okay, why did I just spend, a couple $100 on this filter and $300 on a converted camera? But Vince had notified me earlier this week about, just be aware that, there's more and more people doing or trying infrared with your smartphone. I know nothing. How many remember Sergeant Schultz? Yeah, there's a few of you. I think you're older than 40. Sergeant Schultz and myself, we know nothing. Excellent reference, Rob Shea Photography. I'm going to have a link for him. I also have his book up here. He's a down-to-earth guy. He has a YouTube channel with a lot of this information. He has about a 12 or 15 minute YouTube on using your mobile phone for infrared. The link there is valid. There's Kalari Vision, filters, camera conversions. They also have a lot of tutorials. Most of these sites also will give examples of what can be achieved with the different filters, but realize they want to sell filters. And that's what I did. I bought filters, a lot of them. Yeah, I don't want to, I have no regrets. I really don't, because my age, I want to keep my brain cells chugging along. If it takes infrared to do it, I'll do it. Light Pixel, and then Rob Shea, excellent source of tutorials. His website, YouTube. He has books. I have one of his books. You feel free to look at. Just very easy to read. His YouTube videos are, again, just excellent. he does have pay for like online courses. If you know, IR photography in Lightroom, might be 60 or 70 bucks. I don't know how much it is, but again, a very good reference. And I finished before 10 o'clock. So I have a link there to some of my infrared photos. My Comcast email and my Brooks Photographic email. So that's it. Vince.
Put got the link to Rad Drew, who's the camera or the iPhone infrared person.
That's the one you sent me the link. Oh, sorry. Here's Vince.
So I asked Jay to put a link in the chat. I don't know if he got to it yet. Rad, R-A-D, Drew, D-R-E-W, photography. He is said to be one of the top iPhone type of people using infrared, and there he mentions the equipment he has. It's a magnetic back for the iPhone, and then a screw-in filter, and talks about the filters. And his results are pretty staggering. I don't do any of that type of work. Bill's images are gorgeous. This guy's images with the cell phone look really very fascinating.
Thanks, Vince.
Great talk.
Thank you. Again, to reiterate, we're looking for 1 or 2 more photographers for the Fiddle Fest on September 21st. No, not infrared. Actually, I could. Hey, why not? Pardon? Where?
Anywhere.
Sure. Great. It's like, you can take your normal camera and go photos at night. You need a light source, of course. I would like to try some light painting, have my, on a tripod. You're going to have the same issues you do with a normal camera, probably a higher ISO and slower shutter speed, sure, but you aren't going to get that reflection. Infrared is based on, things being reflected. So I tried a couple down at the Stone House and it didn't turn out.
Hey, Bill,
Don't ask questions I can't answer.
Bill, can you hear me?
That's Jay.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for your presentation, Bill. Another source for infrared training is Derek Story. He's a photographer from California. He has some infrared workshops periodically, and he's going to be starting up one again next year, probably in the spring, and it's an online course, which is very nice and convenient. And it's an online course. It's over the course of, I believe it's a whole month. So you have like once a week or so, you have time to work on your images and then come back together in your online class. And it's very informative. So I recommend that. His name's Derek Story. Another interesting bit of information, one photographer told me when I was taking a photo class many years ago, he said infrared photography got its beginning in World War II, where Kodak developed the infrared film for the purpose of taking aerial photographs of some areas in Europe so that the Allies could find where the Germans were hiding many of their, bombs and weapons and airplanes and stuff, because they would cover them up with vegetation, and the infrared photography would pick up the live vegetation versus the dead vegetation. The real vegetation would be white and the fake vegetation wouldn't be white, so they knew then where to drop the bombs.
Yeah, that's the Kodak Aerochrome film that came out. And that was the one that was used in crop analysis. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bill.